For many British baby boomers, the sight of an electric milk float gliding silently through the streets at the crack of dawn is a memory that brings a smile to their faces, and maybe even a bit of disbelief. Yes, kids, before we had 24/7 supermarkets and delivery drones, we had milkmen. And they were real people, not just a guy on an app. And their ride of choice? The electric milk float. A vehicle so slow and quiet, it made a tortoise look like a Formula One car. These milk floats were ahead of their time, really. While today's cars are busy revving their engines and spewing fumes, the milk float hummed along with the smugness of knowing it was eco-friendly long before it was cool. If you were up early enough, and let's face it, many weren't, you'd hear the gentle whir of the float as it crept down the street like a ninja delivering dairy. Now, the milk itself was no ordinary milk. Oh no. It came in sturdy, reusable glass bottles that made you feel like you were part of some exclusive club. No plastic nonsense here, thank you very much. You'd leave your empty bottles out overnight, and like magic, they'd be replaced by fresh ones by morning. All of this without a single delivery charge. What a time to be alive. The milkman was part of the community, a regular face you could rely on, like Santa Claus but with a much better work ethic and no reindeer to worry about. For decades, this daily milk delivery was as much a part of life as your cup of tea, which, spoiler alert, was probably made with that very same fresh milk. Sure, nowadays we can get almond milk, oat milk, or some mysterious milk made from cashews delivered to our doors with a click. But something about that old-fashioned milk float just hits differently. For baby boomers, the milkman wasn't just delivering milk, he was delivering nostalgia. And a subtle reminder that life didn't always have to be so fast-paced. And if you ask them, they'll probably tell you they missed the days when the only things you had to worry about in the morning was whether your cat had knocked over your milk bottles. Again. Before we move forward, if you're enjoying this trip down memory lane, then please give us a like and subscribe. Okay, let's keep going. Television in the 60s and 70s wasn't just something you zoned out to. It was an event, the moment when the whole family gathered around the one television set. Yes, one TV, and you had to get up to change the channel. And if there was one show that truly made you appreciate the joys of family TV, it was Dad's Army. Now, if you're a baby boomer, just the mention of that title probably has you smiling already. Dad's Army wasn't just any old comedy, it was a British institution. A show that took the idea of protecting the nation and handed it to a group of guys who could barely tie their shoelaces, let alone fight off an invasion. These weren't battle-hardened soldiers. They were the home guard, local shopkeepers, retired gents, and other too old, too young, or too unfit folks left behind during World War II to guard the homeland. And what did that lead to? Pure comedy gold. Captain Mannering, the pompous, overly confident leader of the bunch, always seemed to think he was one rousing speech away from winning the war single-handedly. Except, of course, it was usually his own team that needed saving from themselves. And then there was Corporal Jones, forever running around shouting, "Don't panic," with the enthusiasm of a man who was definitely panicking. You didn't just watch Dad's Army, you quoted it, everywhere, all the time. Still, to this day, boomers will gleefully throw out a "don't panic" the moment life gets a little chaotic, although it rarely helps calm things down. It was a simpler time. No binge watching, no streaming, no endless content. Families would laugh together as Captain Mannering bumbled his way through yet another disaster, with Private Fraser scowling in the background muttering, "We're doomed." For boomers, this show wasn't just a comedy, it was a shared experience, a reflection of the community spirit and humor that got Britain through some tough times. It took a bunch of lovable, bumbling underdogs and made them the heroes of the day. And if that doesn't sum up British humor, I don't know what does. So the next time you hear someone say, "Don't panic," in that classic Dad's Army voice, remember, it's not just a catchphrase. It's a reminder of a time when life was a little simpler, family TV time was sacred, and even the most hopeless group of soldiers could make you feel like everything was going to be okay if you just didn't panic. Long before we had smartphones glued to our hands and Alexa waiting to do our bidding, there was an intricate, human-powered system that connected Britain one call at a time. And it didn't involve yelling at a screen because you accidentally FaceTimed your boss at 3 a.m. Back then, you didn't just dial a number and hope for the best. You got a real, live person known as the operator. You'd pick up your hefty rotary phone, which was essentially a workout for your fingers, and instead of Siri, you'd hear the friendly voice of a human on the other end saying, "Operator, how may I assist you?" That's right, Your call was handled by an actual person who would physically plug you into the correct line using a massive switchboard. I mean, sure, the call might take a minute to go through, but hey, at least you could have a little chat with the operator whilst you waited. Who needs texting when you can have a casual chinwag while waiting for your Aunt Gladys to pick up? For baby boomers, the British Telephone Exchange holds a special place in the heart. It was more than just a system. It was a bridge to the people you cared about. The excitement of hearing your loved one's voice finally come through that crackling line was pure magic. Sure, it wasn't instant, but that's what made it special. And honestly, doesn't everything seem a bit more exciting when you have to wait for it? In today's world of instant messaging, emojis, and autocorrect fails, boomers look back fondly at the time when your calls weren't just connected, they were curated by an actual person. It was a slower, more thoughtful kind of communication when someone made sure you got through and maybe even brightened your day in the process. Now that's customer service you can't get from an algorithm. Do you remember the thrill of holding a few pennies in your pocket and knowing it could buy you a whole world of sugary delights? Baby boomers do, and for them, the corner penny sweet shop was a magical place where dreams were made and then devoured. Back in the day, you didn't need to worry about sugar content or dental hygiene. You just needed to decide between licorice, lemon drops, or maybe a handful of jelly beans. For most kids growing up, these tiny coins were like treasure, and spending them at the local sweet shop was a real event. My nan used to hand me 20p, 20 whole pence, to spend in the shop, and believe me, that could buy you a ton of sweets. Nowadays, you'd be lucky to get a single gummy bear for that, but back then, you could leave the shop with a whole paper bag stuffed full of sweets that would last you, well, at least the afternoon. Of course, I was also encouraged to be sensible with my money, so I'd spend half on sweets and the other 10p on a savings stamp, because, you know, responsibility. But let's be honest, the real thrill was in those sweet, sticky sugar bombs. The ritual of carefully counting your pennies, picking out your favorite, and skipping home with a paper bag full of goodies. Life didn't get much better than that. It was a time when the world felt a bit slower, when a few coins could bring absolute joy, and when the biggest decision of your day was whether to get a sherbet fountain or a few of those flying saucers. Long before you could carry 1,000 songs around in your pocket or stream the latest hit with just a swipe, baby boomers had their music delivered on something magical called vinyl. Ah yes, the record player, where music wasn't just heard, it was experienced. Listening to music wasn't a passive thing back then. It was a ritual. You'd carefully slide the record out of its sleeve, holding it like some precious artifact, because let's face it, it was. Then came the moment of truth, placing the record gently on the turntable, dropping the needle, and waiting for that crackle, the sweetest sound in the world. And once that first note hit, pure magic. You didn't just skip to the next song either. Oh no, you sat through the entire album, side A and side B. It was a journey, not a playlist. For baby boomers, flipping through their collection of LPs was like flipping through a personal diary, with each record representing a moment in their life. That Elvis single? Well, that was the soundtrack to your first crush. That Beatles album? The one you played until it practically wore out because it perfectly summed up how you were feeling that summer. And let's not forget the thrill of actually getting those records. If you were a true music lover back in the day, record shops were your second home. Every week, you'd meet up with your friends, heading straight to the record store to get your hands on the latest #1 single. You'd huddle together, discussing the latest tracks, flipping through rows of LPs like a kid in a candy store. That feeling of walking out with a fresh vinyl under your arm, knowing you're about to spend the next hour listening to it on repeat, was something else. In today's world of playlists and instant downloads, that experience feels like a distant memory, but for baby boomers, it's a cherished one. There's still something about the warmth of vinyl, the tactile feel of an LP, and the shared excitement of discovering a new record with your mates that modern technology can't quite replicate. So the next time you hear someone mention vinyl, remember, it's not just nostalgia. It's about spinning life's moments, right round baby, right round, with every crackle and pop that comes with it. For baby boomers, these memories are more than just relics of the past. They're a part of who they are. It's important to remember these things, and even more important, to never forget. While much of the world has changed, these moments remain timeless in the hearts of those who lived them. Thanks for watching Rewind with Richie. What was your favorite nostalgic memory? Do you actually remember any of these? Make sure to hit that thumbs up button, share, and subscribe so you don't miss out on part 2.